Okay, Joe, this is to explain this whole bit about the chord progressions we were talking about. In order to understand how the chord progressions work, and chord progressions are the harmonic structure of any tune. And we say progression because the chords follow each other, right? First, let's build a scale. And it's all about building scales. That's why I have you playing scales. And that's why I have you learning all those seventh chords too, so you know right away what notes are in those chords, so you don't have to sit and figure it out. So we'll start in the key of C major because that's the easiest. So we build a scale. See, we're building a C scale. See, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then you have the octave. I've numbered each one of the notes in the scale, as you could see. Those are the scale degrees. We start with the first, with the root. It's 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? All right, now we're going to build triads on each one of those scale degrees. So basically, you skip a note, put a note in, skip a note, put a note in. So here's a C, E, and G. That's a C triad. And then if we do the same thing with the D, now we're not writing in any accidentals because we're using the key signature. See, this is what makes it easy. So D, F, A, E, G, B, F, A, C, G, B, D, A, C, E, and then B, D, F. Now, if we do that, triads, these are triads now, regular chords. We have a C chord, that's a C chord. This creates a D minor chord, D, F, and A. Don't think about flat 3 or anything like that. Don't even think about it. D, F, natural, and A. That's a D minor chord. E, G, and B, E minor chord. F, A, and C is a major chord. G, B, and D, that's a G chord. A, C, and E, that's your A minor chord. A, C natural, and E. And then B, D, and F is a B diminished chord. These are triads now. Don't think flat 3, flat 7, and all that stuff. We're using the key signature for all that. So if we're just writing these in, then we know, and if you do this a zillion times, then you're going to know a D minor chord is D, F, and A. That's all. Don't have to be concerned about flat 3 and flat 7. That's just, it's like doing twice the work, and it'll confuse you. Now, to add the sevenths in jazz, see, in simple folk music or whatever, a lot of times they just use triads. We're just using triads. In jazz, they use seventh chords a lot because it adds a little more richness to the flavor of the harmony. So here, if we go up one more note, as you can see, we went to C, E, G. Now we're going up one more note to B for the C major 7. There's our C major. Now we've been doing these. You've been doing these chords. D, F, A, and C. There's our D minor 7. E, G, B, and D. There's E minor 7. F major 7. See how we built it? There's no accidentals either. And this is our G7. That's the dominant seventh chord. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then we have A, C, E, and G. A minor seventh chord. And then this is the B diminished chord. Okay? Now, you can do this in any key. We could do it with any scale. And the chord that's built on the first degree of the scale is always going to be a major 7. The one that's built on the second degree is always going to be a minor 7th. The third degree is always going to be a minor 7th. The chord built on the fourth degree is always going to be a major 7th. the 5th degree is always going to be a dominant 7th chord. The 6th degree, it's always going to be a minor 7th. And the 7th degree is always going to be a diminished 7th. All right? Now, here's the important chords, and this is why I circled these. I circled the 5th and the 1st. Those are the most important chords because they establish the tonality. The 5 chord usually resolves. It wants to go to 1. It wants to go back to 1. So in a chord progression, you'd have the 1 major 7th chord, and here's your 2 minor 7, 5, 7 to 1. Okay, so like in the key of C, you have C major 7, then we'd have D minor 7, followed by the G7, which resolves to 1, back to the C major 7th chord. Again, the 1 major 7th, or the tonic chord, and the 5 chord are the most important. The next ones are the 2 minor 7th chord. That's why if you put 2 minor 7, 5, 7, resolving to 1, that's an important progression. It sets up the tonality for the listener. So you could it establishes the key. Okay? Now in jazz, a lot of times they don't want to stay in one key all the time like you do in a folk song. So what they do is they go through temporary key changes by using 2, 5, 1, but it might be of a different key. Okay, like the How High the Moon thing we were thinking. The target chord here was the G major 7th. Okay, the dominant chord for the G major 7 in the key of G is D7. So that's why we had a D7 resolving to the G. And then we had a minor 7th chord that was before that. And if you look at that, it was the A minor 7. A minor 7, D7 to C major 7th. Okay? And that sets up the tonality. It sets up the tonality of the key of G when you started in the key of A. So it's a little key change that occurs there. That's all that is. But for right now, I think if you write out all your major scales like this, write them out, and then build triads. Build the triads on them, and then you could name them. But you should also know that the first chord is always going to be, this is important right here, because the first chord's always going to be a major 7th. That's always going to be a minor 7, major 7th on the 4th, dominant 7th on the 5th, minor 7th on the 6th, and diminished 7th on the 7th degree of the scale. So if you did a G scale, you could do the exact same thing. You just put in the key signature, the 1 sharp, and then you start building your chords, and then look at the notes that are in it. That's all. Okay? I'm going to try to send this to you before I go too far with it. But I hope that helps to explain a little bit. Okay?